How's it going, and welcome to Inside the Z, the Zachary Football Podcast. My name is Scott Pellegrin, Coach Pell, and on today's episode, we have our player interview, the Coach's Spotlight, and Story Time with Coach Brew. Inside the Z, the Zachary Football Podcast, we have Coach Drew Nettles. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, afternoon, morning. I don't know what time this is aired, but hello.
Well, if you ask Coach Zito, I mean, it's supposed to drop every Wednesday, but due to scheduling, it drops on Thursday. I catch a little heat from that, but it airs whenever you want it to air, Coach.
Thank you. That's good.
But our wide receivers coach here at Zachary, how long have you been here, Coach?
Year 9.
Nine.
Year 9.
This is year number 9.
Year 9.
How many overall?
Year 32.
32.
Yes. 32 years of coaching.
So you're about to hit that promised land of retirement that a lot of people dream of.
I'm in drop, but yeah, I'll keep coaching something, but I'm definitely getting closer to time. Looking for a little more free time.
So, Coach, kind of the premise of what we do here is we exactly what the title says. We're inside the Z, and we kind of open the curtain and pull it back and kind of show people not only the personalities within our program and all the cool stuff and cool players and cool, and the systems and the things in which we do. But kind of how that comes together and how that compares to other places, without putting other people down, but just showing what we do. And so 32 years, how many places have you been?
3. Was at Denham twice. Coming out of college, I went back to Denham Springs for 3 years before going to Woodlawn in Baton Rouge. Spent 8 years there between head baseball and then head football AD, and then 12 years at Denham Springs, and now the 9 here. So
wow,
definitely 3 different systems and different experiences. Big systems, small systems in Livingston, and then the independent school district here in Zachary. So definitely a lot of some similarities in place in some things, but a lot of differences, of course.
So you've held some leadership positions around the area. So how does it compare? I mean, obviously you have the independent school district, and that's been a running theme as we go through and talk to the coaches. How was that experience coming in here 9 years ago and seeing just how different it was? Was it different? What, and especially going from being in a leadership role to just being an assistant?
Yeah, well, I'll see. I tell Coach Brew all the time, I appreciate I'd go by his desk the first couple of years on the way out in the afternoons and say, hey, I'm headed home. Let me know what I can do. I know you'll be here later because, when you're in a position like Coach Brew, the hours are continuous. It's always something else going on being an assistant. I can go home on the weekends or evenings, and you get less calls and less
absolutely
issues going on. But I'll see, going from Livingston to East Baton Rouge, back to Livingston, then being in the position I was there, coming to Zachary, I saw it developing, and saw some great things happening, but you don't know really what's going on until you get inside of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And so, coming in here in 2017 was a great opportunity to be a part of the program. But watching Zachary, and I've told Coach Brew this, is just the vision that it's from top to bottom Zachary has had. They do everything for Zachary. It's a great relationship between the city and the school system, trying to make sure that the kids have everything they need. I've always felt it's very important that, academics are fantastic and they should be pushed high. So should your athletics and clubs, organizations. Everybody should be expected to be at their best, and they do that here. They do a great job. It's not one-sided where, they're going to give a lot to one and take away from the other or push back on it. They're trying to elevate every area of Zachary High School, the Zachary community, the Zachary, city limits, everything. You've just seen improvements continuously trying to make sure this place stays ahead of the curve.
And you talk about, making sure this place is ahead of the curve and kind of spreading the wealth, and everybody kind of pulls, from what it seems like, everybody kind of pulls in the same direction. And I remember one of my interviews, interviewed 2 different times this year before I came in here. And one of the things Coach Brew told me is that a few years back, through attrition, guys, we get other jobs or got head coaching jobs, got promoted to other places. So he lost a few football coaches. And one of his goals was to try to beef up some of the other staffs on campus the best that he could. And, you look at it, state championship basketball programs, boys and girls, state championship track program that's always been, state championship football program. So that's one of the great things you're able to, you are able to spread the wealth here. And it's not just, well, football gets all the coaches, and then if they happen to do something else, they can't. No, it's everybody gets a chance to have a first-round draft pick as far as their coaching staffs.
Obviously, Coach, you've been, as you're coming up, you've had that position a little bit there. And again, I'd had 12 years as AD at Denham Springs and the 4 or 5 years at Woodlawn. You want your other programs to get what they can, but sometimes it's slowed down above you, from the top, and putting teachers in places and different things. But I said this before to other people, like, it's fantastic. There's coaches, it's no offense, but we're in some positions in the PE department, the discipline areas, and the teachers in the classroom are teaching the core subjects.
Yeah.
And so they do a great job of hiring quality teachers that are going to teach physics and English and social studies and all the subjects that you want. Put coaches in roles in the classrooms, create discipline around campus, and do a great job, and then do their job coaching. And so, there's not a place that I've ever been or that I know about where you have a full staff of boys basketball, girls basketball, and high school baseball, softball, and that's what they coach.
Yeah.
Most places coaches are coaching 2 and 3 sports.
Major sports,
yes. Not, I get to help out with golf with Coach Langlois, and, it takes time, and a few coaches go do some other things. But, you don't have guys going from the football field to the basketball gymnasium. Or as when I started as a freshman coach in Denham Springs, and football, basketball, that's what you had to do. And then I fortunate enough to have been part of baseball before. So I did 3 sports when I was coming out. And there's still parishes and districts throughout the state of Louisiana that require that.
Coach, those are some hard seasons to go back to back. I mean, even if you just do football, basketball, or if you do football, baseball, you got that little bit of winter off, depending on how deep you go. But that's 2 grinding schedules. I did that for a couple of years.
There's no break. It's tough. It's tough. And now that sports have really become almost year-round in some instances, you're going to have some crossover time. The breaks are limited.
Yeah.
And it's tough as societies have changed over the years.
And the specialization is really awesome because, like you said, you have people, their first sport is baseball, their first sport is softball, and they don't really do anything else, or basketball or football like us, and some of that type of stuff. And you've sat in the big chair a lot, like you said, and you don't get that luxury everywhere. Talk about being a former head coach, and we don't have to talk about anything negative, but talk about what that's like to sit in that seat and then be able to come to a place where you're really allowed to take that same energy you had managing 100 guys in an athletic department, but now you could focus it to your 15 guys in your position group.
Right. I'll see, one thing I would say to younger coaches is don't rush the process. You see guys sometimes wanting to gain responsibilities, from position to coordinators to being a head coach as quick as they can. Sometimes I think it's more important to make sure you get the right places, because it's easy to get into places that are really difficult.
Yeah.
You can be as confident as the person you want, but the structure that you get into is going to be the key in you having success, you know? And so, I was fortunate, I started back at Denham Springs, where I graduated high school from. It gave me a great opportunity to get my foot in the door coaching and teaching. I was in the classroom, and then I was able to get hired. I was a head baseball coach first, coming out of college baseball. People ask me all the time, well, why are you coaching football? Because when I played high school football, I loved August to December, the football season. I didn't do, and when I was coming up, you didn't have fall baseball. There wasn't nothing going on. I did football.
Right.
Turned around and did high school baseball, played some in the summer, you work out. But I love the sport. I love sports in general. Why I've been in so long, being an AD. I love being involved with basketball programs, track programs. We were fortunate enough to start the soccer programs at Denham Springs and see some things flourish. But, you want to be where your feet are and enjoy that. So to be a head coach, you get those roles. And then John McCann gave me an opportunity in 2002 to be a head football AD. But I had followed, I think one of the best things that happened to me was going back to my high school I was from, so I knew kind of how it operated. Then leave, I went to Woodlawn High School and worked for Mike Mook, who had been at Woodlawn for 20 plus years, and he was a wing T offense that I'd never had any association with. It puts me in charge of the offensive line, so I gained experience coaching that, being head baseball. And so during that year transition, he's getting out, and Benny Saya comes in. Jason Brown's our defensive coordinator, and so we're on staff working together. And learn a lot of different things, because I think something as young coaches, if you can get a couple play, you like to be somewhere for a long time.
Yeah.
But when you're with other coaches and head coaches, you see how they do it, and you get to maybe say, okay, I like how they do it, or I don't want to do it that way. And so you saw some different variations, and then we were having success. And Benny Seiya went to when Dutchtown High School opened. He took the job. I was fortunate enough that he thought enough to recommend me. Jason had moved on over into Ascension Parish, and our staff was changing. And Principal John McCann gave me the opportunity to be a head football coach, AD, and kind of presented that to me. And I wasn't real sure at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't sometimes, like say, if you're not looking for it, things come to you.
Right.
You just kind of do your job and let things come in to where they're at. And that happened. And, what a great opportunity. And went from there, spent 3 years, moved into the new high school for a couple of years. We were at the old school on Tiger Bend before. And so we leave. And then in 2005, I was able to return back to my alma mater in Denham Springs and try to kind of we had to get back in and do a lot of work there, and put 12 years in and saw a lot of great things. As things changed through the job and life, the opportunity, I was finished in Denham Springs, a big flood and some different things happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was time to move on, and got a great opportunity up here with Coach Brew. And, it's been fantastic. Again, another great experience seeing how he does things and the success we've had here.
You want to do it again?
What's that?
Be a head coach?
No. And that's funny you say that, because, I got over here and I've been doing it for so long, and I got in here and Coach Brew would ask each year, says, hey, you think you're ready to go back?
You couldn't picture yourself doing nothing else.
Right. For doing all that time, I was, you were doing it. And then I get over here and we win a state championship. And again, the standard that he had started to create and raise, I can remember coming in the springtime and interviewing Coach Brew, maybe coming, and some of the players that were coming back. Tyler Judson, for example, was a DB. They're doing drills on the field. I'm walking around, and we played them 3 years in a row,
Mm-hmm.
and played some tight games. And he says, "So, Coach, you trying to come over here and join us so you can win a state championship?" And that was the attitude. I mean, he's out there working in the springtime. In 2017, that was his goal and what he wanted to do. He's going to be a junior, and fortunately, he's on those back-to-back teams in 17 and 18 and whatever. And the kids were just, really wanting to compete for it. But so he'd always ask, "Hey, you want to go back?" I said, "Heck no."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I've been in the classroom, been an AD, a head coach, doing all that paperwork." I said, "Heck, if I go somewhere else, I still got to be better than Zachary." I said, "I'm not sure there's a place within. I can't move.
Right.
I'm stuck to the Baton Rouge area." I says, "Heck no, I'm good right here. I want to coach." You get back into, I guess, the change from being a head coach is, you mentioned the energy you can put into a position. You get to be back with the kids.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest negative, you don't realize it when you want to be a head coach, but it becomes a separation from the head coach to the players
Mm-hmm.
On a day-to-day basis, because you're dealing with all the other things that are going on.
It's so administrative, and that's one thing I felt personally like I was as prepared as I was going to get without actually doing it and making the mistakes of doing it. Right. So from the outside, it's okay. I think I'm ready, and I know I'm going to learn a lot of stuff as I go. But I think that's one of the things that I wasn't quite sure about, how divorced you are from the day-to-day of the kids, because you're doing so much administrative.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And the relationship is different.
Yeah, and again, I was more of an offensive coach. I handled play calling for a number of years, and so I'm preparing for that side of it. So I'm trying to be an offensive coach, and I'm trying to do the administrative part, the AD for the other sports. Well, your defensive coach, I had a great Mark Carroll was handling that, but you lose parts of the program. You just don't get to oversee it, and that's what that really becomes at a big program, a 5A school. You need to be back where you can kind of oversee everything and get your hands on it a little bit instead of being involved in a certain part.
Yeah, make time to visit the drills, make time to call kids in privately, make time to form those kind of one-on-one things you get to do with a position group. Talking about the kids, me and Brew are going to talk a little bit later on in this show about some of the best receiving talent to ever come through the doors here. And there's plenty, and I know he's probably going to be worried that he's going to leave somebody's name off. But, 9 years, you've seen a ton of great talent, guys who've played in college, guys who maybe have been pretty good but necessarily didn't play in college, or role players that turned out to be awesome because of the guys they were playing with. Talk a little bit about the receiving core and the talent you've been able to coach the last few years.
Well, I'm going to start one I didn't coach because I played against him, but Doug Coleman, great year in 2015, was part of their first state championship here and got things going and went on to be a college DB.
Yeah.
And then made it, into the league with the Bears and things like that. A great career. Got here in 2017, and you've played against guys and you've seen them a little bit, but we've been fortunate. We've had 1 to 2 every year that's gone on to college. So you have the top end guys. Trey Shropshire was a senior in 2017. He went to junior college and finished at UAB, led the nation in yards per catch while he was there. In 2018, the carryover guys that were on that team, right? Buddy Davis, Chris Simmons, and Chandler Whitfield.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 juniors were starting in 2017, and then they were leading the group in 2018. They all went on. Chris Simmons went to Prairie View on college football scholarship, got a college degree. He did get an extra year at Grambling. Buddy went on to play at Southern for a couple of years, had a little injury, and then got his degrees, moved forward on that. And obviously Chandler Whitfield's back now coaching with us. So that's the senior group. You talk about it translates. That sophomore play, and there's Chris Hilton. I was one of the most athletic guys that we've had come through here. He's a 7-foot high jumper as a track athlete, as a freshman, state champion. And he progresses. And it's easy to talk about those guys that are playing at that level. A Trades Green, Tyson George at Grambling, who's going off now after his first year, was catching balls. Cameron, we got guys everywhere. I can name the McNeese. It's Cameron Senegal and Jalen Wright. You got Tylen Williams and Tyson George at Grambling. Charles Robinson, probably the pound-for-pound toughest, physical, most aggressive wide receiver we had here, who he might be banged up, but he wasn't missing a snap. He's at UL, had his touchdown catch this past weekend.
That's right.
You got all of those guys that are playing college football. Last year's group, Jaden Cockham, walked on at Arkansas Monticello. In 3 weeks, they put him on scholarship. So it's just good to see the carryover of these guys going out and transitioning to that level. But those guys are there. But I'll go back. There's a guy, Kenson Tate.
Mm-hmm.
Kenson Tate came in as a freshman, was 135, 140 pounds, wide receiver, got on the track. He starts growing each year. He's a JV player as a 10th grader. He's running track, getting a little faster. You see that. Then his junior year, he's out. He catches 10, 11 balls, I believe. He's a backup because, got Chris Hilton running around. Jaden Williams, who went and played college baseball. He's a wide receiver. Brother of Jordan Williams, who played on the 21 team. That was a 4.0 student athlete who's playing college baseball. But Kenson goes and grows, and Chris Hilton gets hurt, and Kenson becomes the leading receiver through that season when Chris is coming back from off-season injury, and he runs track. He wins a state championship. He's running at Lamar. He's been the Southland Conference Athlete of the Year in the long jump. He's competed in the Olympic trials, in track and field. And so just another guy that he grew up in the system. He competed. Had a brother before I got here, played DB, but the Tate family, again, he stayed steady in the process. And that's what I tell our receivers each year. I can show them sophomores that caught 4 balls, 8 balls as a varsity player.
Mm-hmm.
Show them a guy that didn't catch a ball as a varsity player, and then the junior year they took on a little more responsibility, and then their senior year, and they continued. If they've stayed true to the process, it can pay off. And Tylen Williams. The 21 team, and Coach Brew talks about it. What team was the best here and there? I've been around those 3. I wasn't there with 2015, but the 21 team was a very unselfish group. Charles Robinson and Cameron Senegal's at McNeese, but Tylen Williams, there was a Jaden Pabon, the senior starter for 10 weeks, breaks his ankle in week 10, and Tylen Williams is the JV receiver. He had rotated in. He steps into the playoffs, gets a couple balls in the state championship game against Pontotoc. He's got 6 catches, 133 yards, in his first varsity touchdown. And
in the Superdome.
In the Superdome as a junior. In his senior year, catches 50 balls and signs with he ran track, competed for Coach Carrier and them, and then went on to Grambling now. And last year in the Bayou Classic against Chandler Whitfield was the Classic MVP. But Tylen Williams had a 100-yard kickoff return and another big catch, competing against each other. So there's a ton of stories like that where these guys, if they just stick together and do what they're supposed to do and can grow. High level talent, of course, it's not coaching, you're a better coach when the players are great.
Absolutely.
And I've had a special group that can continue to run, to have the key guys, but the best groups always have the glue guys that are continuing to grow and fill in each year, and been very blessed.
And from what I've seen from our short time here with our, especially at that position, our better players, who are at that position, those guys are still great team guys. They still try to hold people accountable. They still do all the other right things. They're not just a good player and that's all they're good for. They're all, like, for example, KB's a captain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kimmy comes in, Kimmy's a great locker room guy. You got guys in that group who are not just talented football players, but they're great people and great people for our locker room and great people for our other kids to be around and look up to while they're having that development.
Well, we've been very blessed. Mike Fuqua coached here for 7 years when he was here before me and helping with the wide receivers, and we did the tag team, did two of us coaching together, and then he stepped away 2 years ago, and then we got Chandler back in this year. So it takes a couple of guys with him, but the standard was set on how they needed to play. The players that were coming up through, the Chandler Whitfields and Simmons and Buddy Davis, those guys with me the first 2 years, but how they did things carried over to the juniors, and we've been able to continue to roll that through. This year's group, KB being Christian Brooks being the only senior, is kind of uncommon. Usually we have 2 or 3 guys, whether they're 2 starters and a rotator, but there's usually a couple more in the room. And, so he's done a great job with those guys, kind of leading them and the standard, and you see them improving as a group, and that the consistency that they can show day in and day out. And then to have Chandler back with us, what an awesome experience. They can listen to a guy that's been through it, that can understand it close to their age, not the old coach, 32 years, these young guys. Sometimes look at that guy up there and I start talking a lot.
But Coach, think of, not that you need the extra credibility, but think of the credibility that lends. A former player coming back and coaching Chandler. And then you coach Chandler, but you also coach most, that array of talented football players you just named. You coach most of them while you were over here. You know what I mean? Think of the credibility that lends to anybody coming forward. Coach Nettles coached him. Coach Whitfield played for Coach Nettles. Coach Whitfield been through the program. He understands the standard from both perspectives now. Think about the credibility in that room, not just from the talent that has come through and graduated, but from the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I think it's been consistent, and through my coaching career, that's who I've tried to be. Make sure that give those guys everything they can to grow. Make sure they understand that. And even in my time, 32 years, you're a young guy. You're usually coaching all the X's and O's and different things, and probably missed on a couple things with the kids that growing. But I feel like definitely in the last 9 years here and the last part at Denham Springs, I could see and do a better job of making sure they understand that real life is happening.
Yeah.
Some life experiences that we go through and we know, and share that with them and try to apply it to help them. It's bigger than the football field. It's bigger than a touchdown, the basketball court, whatever it may be. You're not defined by success and you're not defined by a failure, and that's something to try to tell those guys. If you do it, and stealing from Coach Saban, a thing, or like the process, if you just do it the right way, things can work out for you when you leave the football field, because that's not going to be there forever,
right?
The basketball court and those kind of things.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for the time. This was a very good conversation. I think the listeners will love it. We've gotten some play here, and people are watching, and that's a good thing. Coach, thank you.
I appreciate it. It's all about the Z.
Here with our weekly main event on Inside the Z, the Zachary Football Podcast. Coach Brew.
Yes, sir.
So we had Nettles on, all right, our wide receivers coach. We had Whitfield on our last episode a couple of weeks back before the bye. So that kind of stuck in my head. I'm like, well, why don't we talk about the greatest players volume 2, but wide receiver edition?
Right.
Because we talked about quarterback talent last time. So talk to me a little bit about the receivers and how blessed we've been over here to have that kind of talent.
Yeah, we have been incredibly blessed. We talked about the quarterbacks a few weeks ago, incredibly blessed with quarterback talent, but that's, one position, right? And one quarterback. Stephen, we got 3 or 4 guys out there on every play, and we've been, super blessed to have some absolute incredible talent that has come through here as a receiver. Lots of all-state guys, and the majority of those guys went on to play at the next level. Early on, Doug Coleman, right off the bat.
Mhm.
I told a story about Doug not long ago, but Doug was the first one that I've had here. He was an all-state guy, was the leading receiver as far as yards and catches and touchdowns in the state of Louisiana, all classifications. So he was a 15 player, he graduated 16, but 15 graduate on that, 15 football player on that state championship. We had a kid not long after him, by the name of Trey Shropshire. Trey Shropshire was a 6'3" receiver that had blazing speed. Was an amazing athlete, and the things that he could do with his body. Was an all-state football player here. Went on to play 4 years at UAB in Birmingham, and then was in the Canadian League currently. Trey was one of those guys. He was such a super athlete that there wasn't a quarterback in that class. So when they came through as freshmen, Coach Chet DeLee decided to put him as the quarterback.
Mhm.
You take
the best player.
put him there, but you see a 6'3" guy running zone read back there, and when he pulled it, brother, it was impressive to watch. Had one of the most prolific injuries I've ever seen. We were in the off season, and I was doing a speaking engagement off campus. And I got back in my truck to come back to campus, and I looked at my phone, and I had like 10 missed calls from different coaches and staff.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, that can't be good, right? It's fourth hour, and I got 10 missed calls, right? So I call what's going on. They were running 110s that day. It was during the off season, and they got finished running, and a couple of guys were playing around, throwing moon rockets with the ball. And Schropp was running full speed, and runs out the back of the end zone to catch one. And there was one of these benches that was right outside the field of play, and broke his shin bone.
Wow.
On that. Oh my goodness gracious! You talk about your heart drop, of course, going into his junior year. So that took a while to recoup there, but he was unbelievable for us. Had a couple of touchdowns in the state championship game in 2017. Chandler Whitfield's on our staff now.
Mhm.
Was another all-state receiver here. Dynamic guy. Went on to play football. Went to ULM first, and then finished up on Bluff over at Southern. Incredible ball player. Charles Robertson currently playing at UL. The receivers there. Another all-state guy here.
I think he caught a touchdown the other night. if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
correct. That's correct. Tough, hard-nosed, physical. Was just excited to stalk block as he was to catch the ball.
And you don't hear that from wide receivers
I know.
very often.
I know, man. I know. And that's, Coach Nettles still shows film of him,
Mhm.
current receiving core. And look at this right here. These things you got to do right here. You mentioned Chris Hilton, all-state here, played LSU's currently, finished up his senior season at LSU right now. Trey Dez Green, who played here, was an all-state guy. There right now. The kicker is those are some prolific names that I just gave, but there's guys that were huge parts of the program that maybe didn't get the notoriety that those guys had. Big time recruits. Two of them are starting receivers right now at Grambling. Tylen Williams and Tyson George. Tyson George is leading the SWAC, and Tylen's second in the SWAC right now. Those guys were phenomenal football players for us. I remember we were playing Catholic here one night, and we threw just like a now screen to Tylen Williams on the outside. He went from 75 right straight through the middle of the defense. Right? He was incredibly fast. Was just a player. Tyson George, the one I just mentioned. Tyson's a guy that just led Zachary football, man, since he was a little bitty kid. Just loved coming to games on Friday night, throw with the paper cup in the end zone, playing football down here. So I think about those guys a lot and what they brought to the table. Traylon Sepp just graduated last year. It's shifty, little fast slot guy that we had that made some unbelievable catches. I think about our receiving corps sometimes. You remember that night we were all sitting at my house and we were talking about the different position groups, and you were hearing everybody talk about it.
Yep.
When you got to receiver, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But we had this one here.
Right.
So I want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit of that, the role players up on the team, because, I imagine y'all had no shortage when you've had those big names and those big recruited guys.
Yeah.
Teams do their best to try to take them away, whether they put a safety over the top or whether they bracket him in some form or fashion. What success have we had of other guys being able to shine as a result of that attention being on one player?
I can tell you, there's been a lot of guys that have received scholarships playing football here. And when the college coaches showed up on this campus, they were not the person they were coming to see.
Really?
That happens a lot, man. That happens a lot, Coach, such and such looked really good. I was here to see him, man. He's as advertised. But tell me about this guy.
Yeah.
Who is that guy right there? That's why I tell our guys all the time, you never know. Every day is an interview. You never know who's watching. You never know who's got film on, what coach is watching tape. My goodness, who is that other guy right there?
Mm-hmm.
And that happens a lot. It really does. And we've had some guys flourish because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, we've been able to make a lot of deep runs in the playoffs over the years. And so, naturally, the longer you're playing during the season, the more opportunities college coaches have to come on campus.
That's right.
And more opportunities for your guys to be seen. So when you're talking about, I want my boy to get noticed, I want my boy to be out there. Well, hey, the more football games we win, the better opportunities we have for that to take place.
Because the colleges make those first rounds they made their first round during that bowl prep during December. So
right.
That's when
That's correct.
Louisiana's still playing.
Yeah, that's right. And I had a college coach come here one night, and he was actually coming to watch the opposing team we were playing. John Aaron was loaded that year. We had him in a second round playoff game here. He stood on their sideline. He was there specifically to recruit a couple of their guys. And he was in my office on Monday morning with a list, right? I want to offer this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. We didn't know that was going to be the case, but he saw him play that night. Whoa, man, I got to find these kids.
And that's awesome that guys able to jump off the page like that. So I guess we can put your OC hat on for a second, and how have we, and Kenny kind of has talked to me about this, especially here, but how have we done a good job of getting those guys involved? Because like I just said, defense is I need to take that guy away, but on the flip side, as an offensive coach, you're thinking, well, I got to find ways to get that person the ball, because there's a really good chance, and it doesn't have to just be a receiver or anybody here, but we were talking. I was talking with another coach, a buddy of mine. We were talking about using your best player on offense and things like that. And I've always kind of been of the belief, been right or wrong, that if that guy is not the best player in the yard, you got to try to get him the ball, but forcing it to him might not be to your advantage. But have we been in those situations in the past where, okay, that guy's probably better than the other 21 guys on the field, and we need to make sure he touches the ball X amount of times?
Yeah. Well, I'll comment in two different ways. The first thing I'll tell you is Tre'Davious Green was not the leading receiver. Tyson George was.
Right.
Okay. Well, you got a corner and a safety bracket on top of him every single play. It opens up things for other people. That's the first thing I'll say. You asked me to put my OC hat on. I'll tell you this. When I went into a game, I would have my play sheet, the top left-hand corner. I would have, all right, Juju. Let's just call him Juju. All right, Juju, these are the 7 plays I had specifically to put the ball in.
Right.
We got to figure out how. So, and I would look at that, when we had an interesting, like 2nd and 4, right? Well, that play was pretty wide open.
Yeah.
The defensive coordinator, they're geez, I wonder what he's going to do right here. And unless you have strong tendencies, it's pretty wide open again. It's a guessing game at that point for a defensive coordinator. Well, I would tend to run one of those plays in that situation just to make sure that, okay, he's touching the football. We have to make sure this guy touches the ball. So I think that sometimes coordinators can get away from that, if it's not just on the forefront for them to see all the time. Sometimes I would forget to do that if I didn't have that stuff charted and written down and ready to go. So that's why I really started making that as just part of my play sheet that I had every week. I had to have it done that way. But also I'll say this. Sometimes as coaches, we make things too complicated.
Absolutely.
My goodness gracious. That story I told not long ago was to Edwards about it's
We drew it in the dirt.
right. I mean, like, the bottom line is if you have a guy who has been the best football player when he was in the 3rd grade through the 8th grade, and then he went to high school and he was the best player from his freshman year through his junior year, chances are his senior year he's still going to be the best player, right? So figure out how to get him to football. And if you do that, now the greatest, I know I'm rambling now, but the greatest thing is you got one of those guys, and then you have some really capable guys, all right? Oh, that's when things get fun as an offensive coordinator, right? Because you're watching defensive coordinators try to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and all of a sudden you start doing some things with those other guys that they weren't prepared for.
I'll pull the curtain back to how I would call plays. When those are the situations, regardless of who it is, you know what you start doing? You start getting away from that. Well, I need to make sure I have this on this guy. It's kind of like, well, I might need to play a little more balanced now, but there's way more. I can't put 2 guys on everybody.
And the thought process of a defensive coordinator turns way more to coverages rather than what you need to be doing up front, pressure lines, and everything else. So the more games you can play out there, and then it becomes a coordinator on the headset talking with his other coaches about what coverage they need to be in, this down and distance, and the clock is rolling, and all of a sudden you're steering clear of the pressures that you need to be putting on there. Instead, you're worried about what your coverage is. So those kinds of things. And the next thing you know, are let's just get cut for, and then you're busting up your inside zones, hitting you.
Now you're getting gashed up the middle. They're throwing quicks and outs
Right.
and killing you right there. That's absolutely right, because there are 3 people in that equation. There's the receiver, there's the DB, and the problem I think a lot of offensive coaches that I've seen, they're like, just throw it up. Well, who's the 3rd man in that equation? The cat who's got to throw it. Sure, he's got to be accurate. Sure, he's got to be protected. There's a whole lot of other factors. There's a whole lot of other factors that go into that. And that makes a whole lot of sense. Well, let's see how we can manipulate the front, because we might have to be a little more vanilla in coverage because they got 1, 2, 3 guys that could potentially catch the ball out.
Yeah.
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 So talk about the qualities, probably as we wrap up. That they all have home run potential. Was one more of a go up and get it guy, one more of an over the middle possession type guy, with one better. I mean, fair to lead here. Chris Hilton took the screen in 18 to the house, Superdome.
Sure.
So the screen game is a big part of what we do. Just talk about the qualities. Were they all kind of different? Was there a particular type of kid that just ends up coming through the doors here? How's that go?
Yeah, I think it's we've had all kinds. The one I was telling you about, Doug Coleman, at the first championship. We the first passing touchdown for the Zachary Broncos in a state championship game was called by a guy named Sharon White. Sharon was another phenomenal athlete for us that was opposite Doug Coleman out there on the field, and he called a slant and split the 2 safeties and housed it, right? So the actual first touchdown we ever scored in a state championship game wasn't by Doug Coleman, right? It was by Sharon White. Sharon went on to play at Southeast as a receiver there. Now he was such a good athlete that in passing situations he'd go play corner, and he had a pick in the state championship game as well. So
Good piece of trivia, right?
Yeah, definitely. So you're asking about their attributes and what those guys brought to the table. We've had some absolute burners. We've had some guys who were so quick. Tyson George, he was really, really quick. I don't think he had open 4.3 speed, but he was just so quick, and his ball get off was so good. But we've had all guys in between, right? Mm-hmm. And the Shropshire guy that I talked about earlier was probably the one that his athletic ability was so special. He was quick. He was super burner fast. Great ball skills. Could do things with his body in the air that were so impressive. Mm-hmm. Good jumping, not elite, but really good jumping. So he had all these different pieces of the puzzle that he had that made him so difficult to defend. And then you had, a guy like Chris Hilton, leaper, right? I mean, we could do things, or go throw it down. We got inside the 20. The entire stadium was about to take place, right? Same with Trey Dennis, right? The entire stadium did, but can you stop it? That's the kicker. Some guys could stop it, some couldn't, right? So again, it's about not making things overly hard on yourself as a coordinator, as a head coach, thinking about those kinds of things. Let those guys go make some plays. But I think what's really important in our system, excuse me, I think what's really important in our system is Kenny is a real big concept guy, right? So our receiving core has to understand, hey, sometimes you may be on the outside, sometimes you may be on the inside, sometimes we may be in trips to your side, and you may be lined up in 3 different places depending on what the formation is. And then if just a concept is called, you may have a go if you're the outside guy, you may have an out the second guy, and you may have a seam the next guy. So you don't know, so you have to know what the concepts are. Mm-hmm. That's different from the way we were in the early days. Where one guy was lined up in a specific place and mm-hmm. a specific route. So it's kind of evolved the offense a little bit to get to where we are now, which takes a little bit more time in the classroom, a little bit more film.
It means you have smart football players.
Yeah, and you got to have high football IQ guys to go play that. And if you don't, then you have to make sure that you're putting it in the most advantageous position to be successful. And we do that as well sometimes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Coach, I have to say, we started posting some of these shorter clips on Instagram. We had over 5,000 views on one, 3,000 to 4,000 on a few more, about 1,000 on pretty much all of them. So we're getting some play on this, which I think is really awesome. We were joking the other day. I think kids use Instagram, and the old people like us use Facebook. And the parents will use Facebook. Right. So those have been the 2 best forums so far. And we still have people watching the entire episode, which is really nice. Yeah. We're going to try to get on iTunes pretty soon. That's my next project. But, Coach, I appreciate you coming on and making the time every single week to do this.
Yeah, no problem, man. I love it. It's cool. I'm glad we're able to just kind of take a few minutes and relax a little bit and talk about the program. One thing I'll say before we get finished up, because of the number of just phenomenal receivers we've had on this place, there is no doubt this episode comes out.
Oh, you're getting a phone call?
I'm getting a phone call.
Ain't no doubt.
You got to be kidding me. How was my name not on there? And they'll be right. They'll be right. So I'm going to have to make that list when I get a call about it.
And then we'll come on, we'll rectify it next week, and we'll give those guys their due, and then we can do part 3.
Right.
There's no shortage of good players to talk about. Coach, thanks again, man.
That's a wrap for today's show. Thank you for tuning in to Inside the Z, the Zachary Football Podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Don't forget, like and subscribe.